The drive up felt like freedom. 5 hours of winding switchbacks, pine shadows stretching long across cracked asphalt. I'd been dreaming of this moment for months, the first real step into the next part of my life. After 30 years of pulling wire through crawl spaces and chasing contracts that never quite paid what they promised, I was finally doing something for me. A cabin. My cabin. The listing had called it a hidden gem in need of care. 40 acres of mountain land, old timber, and clean air. The photos looked rough, sure, peeling paint, sagging deck, but I could see what it could become. A place to rebuild, to breathe. I'd paid cash. Every dime from selling my old house and the retirement fund my ex never knew about. The paperwork was clean. Title search clear. Bank confirmed transfer. It was mine, legally and spiritually. By the time I reached the last gravel stretch, sunlight was slicing through the pines, lighting up the mist like smoke. The smell of wet earth hit me, clean, heavy, alive. My buddy, Mason, sat beside me, boots on the dash, chewing sunflower seeds. "Hard to believe you got all this for 90 grand, he said, spitting a shell into an empty cup. I smiled. Sometimes the world still has a little mercy left. Then I saw it. 3 vehicles in the driveway. Not old mountain trucks, newer stuff. A white SUV, a silver minivan, and an ancient Ford pickup with rusted sides. My chest tightened. The cabin door was open. Curtains I'd never hung flapped in the breeze. Mason leaned forward. "You expecting anyone?" "No." I parked behind the minivan. The air smelled faintly of wood smoke and something cooking. Stew. Maybe. I grabbed my folder from the dash, every document I had printed and stamped, and stepped out. Gravel crunched under my boots. That's when she came out, blonde, late 40s, maybe early 50s. Yoga pants, tight fleece pullover, phone in one hand, the other clutching a set of keys like a weapon. Her face was red from shouting before she even opened her mouth. "You can't park here," she barked. "This is private property." I stopped halfway up the drive. "Ma'am, this is private property, mine, excuse me." She laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "I think you've made a mistake. My family's lived here for generations. My father built this house." Behind her, a man stepped out, broad-shouldered, older, wearing a camo hoodie and holding a can of beer like he'd been waiting to be angry all day. "You need to get off our land," he said. Now, I raised the folder. "I bought this place 2 months ago, through a foreclosure auction. Here's the deed, title, and tax record. You're trespassing." Her face shifted, not surprise, not fear. Something colder. "That auction was fraudulent," she said, voice trembling with manufactured outrage. "The county's been investigating it for years. My husband's already talked to Sheriff Harlan. You can explain it to him." The man lifted his phone, dialing. Mason whispered, "Want me to grab the crowbar?" I shook my head. "No, let's stay civil." But my heart was pounding. Because behind her, through the open doorway, I saw movement. A kid, maybe 10, running across the living room. A dog barked. Toys scattered across the porch. They weren't visiting. They were living here. I walked closer, slow, careful. "Listen, I don't want trouble. I just want to see the property I purchased. You can call whoever you need." She blocked the door. "You're not coming in." The man, still on the phone, nodded. "Sheriff's on his way. Says don't move a damn thing." Mason exhaled hard. "Buddy, this ain't right." 20 minutes later, a cruiser rolled up. Sheriff's Department logo faded from years of sun. The man who stepped out looked like every small-town cop you've ever met. Gray mustache, gut pressing against his belt. Eyes that said he'd seen this a dozen times before and didn't care for any of it. He talked to them first. Long handshake, a laugh. Then he turned to me. "So, what's the problem here?" "I bought this property," I said, handing him the deed. "They broke in. I want them removed." He scanned the paper, then looked up at the blonde. "Karen, I'd later learn. They're saying this was their family home," he said. "It wasn't," I said. "It was foreclosed by Mountain State Bank. I have the title. The sale cleared last month." The sheriff sighed, closing the folder. "Sounds like a civil matter. Not something I can settle today. You'll have to take it up with the county court." I stared at him. "You're telling me they can just stay here?" He shrugged. "Until the court decides, yeah? Possession's 9/10 of the law." Karen smiled like she'd won a game I didn't know we were playing. The sheriff tipped his hat, climbed back into his cruiser, and drove away. Mason muttered a curse under his breath. We just got robbed, didn't we? Yeah, I said quietly. And the law helped them do it. We drove down the mountain in silence. The sun had dipped behind the ridge, shadows stretching long across the road. My hand shook on the wheel. I'd worked my whole life for that cabin, and in one afternoon, it was gone. That night, I checked into a roadside motel 10 miles out. Mildew smell, buzzing neon sign outside the window. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop seeing their faces. Corinne's smug smile, her husband's smirk, the sheriff's lazy indifference. By 2 a.m., I was online, digging through West Virginia property laws. What I found made my stomach turn. Adverse possession. A legal loophole that lets squatters claim ownership if they stayed long enough. It could take years to fight in court. They'd set me up, and I wasn't walking away. The morning light came through the motel blinds like a bad hangover, pale, merciless, and unwanted. I hadn't slept a minute. The coffee maker in the corner coughed out something black and bitter that barely qualified as caffeine. I opened my laptop again, scrolling through county records until my eyes burned. The more I read, the clearer it became. They knew exactly what they were doing. Her name was Corinne Dalton. Not that I didn't already expect it. The blonde, who had screamed about her family's legacy. Turns out she wasn't just some random squatter. She was a licensed real estate agent in the same county. Her husband, Rick, was listed as a building inspector for the local zoning department. My jaw clenched so hard it ached. They knew the property history better than anyone. The foreclosure had been public record for 18 months. The title was clean. They'd seen it go up for auction and decided to take it back through paperwork and patience. Mason called around noon. You still up there? Yeah, I said. Buddy, what's the plan? Lawyer, today. The nearest one was Margaret Ellis, a sharp-tongued semi-retired attorney working out of an office behind the diner. The place looked like it hadn't been dusted since Reagan was president, but she had eyes like a hawk and spoke like she'd seen every scam in the book. She read through my documents in silence. Then she pushed them back across her desk. You've got clean ownership, she said. But that woman Corenchi's playing the long game. She files one dispute with the county, one claim of fraudulent sale, and you'll be tangled in hearings for a year. Maybe 2. So what do I do? She leaned back, crossed her arms. File an emergency eviction order. Fast, but it won't stop her from countering. This'll be a slog. I nodded, gripping the folder. I'm not backing down. Good, she said. Then we'll fight dirty, but within the law. We filed that afternoon. I paid her retainer with my savings card. Nearly 10 grand gone in a blink. She warned me it could get worse before it got better. I believed her. 2 days later, I drove back up the mountain just to see the place again. The cabin looked different already. My cabin, the porch had been swept. A new flower pot sat by the steps. And on the side, a half-built wooden frame, like they were adding a room. I got out of the truck, filming everything with my phone. My voice on the video was shaking. Illegal construction on private property. Date, timestamp. Then I saw Corinne. She was standing on the deck, arms crossed, smirking. Back again. She said, "Didn't the sheriff tell you to stay away?" "This is my property," I said, holding up the phone. "You're trespassing. And now you're damaging my home." Rick stepped out from behind her, wearing a work belt this time, holding a tape measure like it was proof of ownership. "You're harassing us. Keep that up and you'll be hearing from our lawyer." "Already did," I said. "Cease and desist letter." "You had that sent fast." His smirk didn't move. "Guess you better listen then." I drove off before I did something I'd regret. Back at the motel, I forwarded the video to Margaret. She replied an hour later. "They're building to establish sweat equity. Don't confront them. Let them hang themselves." That night, the bank called. "Mr. Cole," the voice said, formal and nervous, "we've received an anonymous complaint regarding your recent property purchase. Until we resolve it, we're freezing your credit line." My last $30,000 unlocked. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone. The hum of the motel's AC filled the silence like static. They weren't just trying to steal my house. They were choking me out. Legally, financially, psychologically. By week's end, I was driving to the county courthouse every morning, learning how to file complaints, motions, and counterclaims. Margaret called it paper warfare. She also told me something that stuck. Public officials have ethics rules. If Rick's a county inspector and involved in a personal property dispute, he's violating state code. File it. So I did. Complaints went to the State Real Estate Commission, the County Ethics Board, and even the Attorney General's office. I spent nights in that motel typing reports like a man possessed. That's when I learned what fear looks like online. Karen posted a fake review of my old contracting business. Called me a fraudster who scammed a local family. Within hours, the comments flooded in. Locals I'd never met calling me a thief. One said I'd better watch the roads at night. Margaret told me to stay calm, stay visible. The moment you disappear, they win. I didn't disappear. But I did start to doubt myself. What if they were too connected? What if the system was too slow to care? Then, one afternoon, while eating at the diner across from Margaret's office, a woman approached me. 60-something. Wiry gray hair, a county ID badge still hanging from her neck. "You're the guy fighting the Daltons?" she asked. I nodded. She sat down across from me without asking. "Name's Linda Reeves. Used to work at the clerk's office." "I've seen this before. What do you mean?" "Karen and Rick," she said, lowering her voice. "They've done this twice. Different properties, different buyers. Always foreclosures. Always someone out of town. They squat, file fake claims, delay the court until the owner settles just to end the nightmare. Settles, pays them off. 10, maybe 15 grand. Cheaper than 2 years of court." My stomach turned. Linda slid a faded file across the table. Old records, yellowed edges, dates from years back. She tapped a name on the page. Same sheriff signed off on both. I stared at the paper, my pulse hammering. They turned property theft into an industry. And I was their next target. The county courthouse smelled like coffee, old paper, and resignation. The kind of place where time moved slower than justice. I sat outside courtroom to be, suit jacket hanging off the back of the chair, deed folder in my lap like a lifeline. 6 weeks had crawled by since I'd filed the eviction motion. 6 weeks of silence from the sheriff, half answers from the bank, and a steady stream of online harassment that made me realize just how deep Karen's roots ran in this town. The Daltons had filed for counterclaims in that time: fraudulent title, defective sale, emotional distress, and something about historical occupancy rights. Margaret called it a circus of nonsense, but nonsense with paperwork still carries weight. She came out of the courtroom first, glasses halfway down her nose. "Judge'll hear us after lunch," she said. "The Daltons' lawyer's late. As usual. Do we have a shot?" She nodded once. "If the judge reads what I gave him, yes. But don't expect fireworks. This isn't TV. It's a slow bleed." I walked outside for air. The town square was quiet, just the clang of a flagpole and the faint buzz of cicadas. Across the street, Karen stood with Rick and their lawyer, some slick Charleston guy in a blue suit who probably billed more per hour than my truck was worth. She smiled when she saw me. That same smile I'd seen the day she stood on my porch. The kind that said, "I can drag you through hell and look good doing it." I turned away. Margaret had told me not to engage, but every part of me wanted to. Months of anger pressed like a knot in my throat. I could still smell my own sawdust in that cabin. Still remember how I'd pictured mornings there, coffee by the deck, sunrise through the trees, peace. Now, it was someone else's home. My name was on the title, but my life was in limbo. Back inside, the bailiff called our case. The room was small, wood-paneled, a single ceiling fan clicking like a metronome. Karen took the stand first. Her lawyer led her through a polished script: family history, emotional hardship, claims of being duped by a fraudulent auction. She cried on cue. Real tears, or good acting. Then it was my turn. I stood with my hand on the edge of the podium, trying not to sound angry. "Your Honor, I have every legal document proving ownership. I paid cash, verified title, and filed taxes." They moved in without permission and began altering the property. Margaret slid photos across the table, time-stamped, printed, labeled. Concrete poured, windows replaced, a new deck frame. The judge looked over his glasses at Karen's lawyer. "Your clients did this after the sale." He cleared his throat. "Your Honor, they believed I believed." The judge cut him off. "Belief isn't ownership." I didn't breathe for a full 10 seconds. Margaret spoke next. Calm, sharp, surgical. "We're not asking for damages, Your Honor. Just for the law to be enforced. Immediate removal, with the sheriff's department executing the order." The judge scribbled something on his pad, sighed, then looked up. "Ms. Dalton, Mr. Dalton, possession without title is unlawful. You've been given due notice. I'm signing the order for eviction effective immediately. You have 72 hours to vacate. Corinne's face froze. The lawyer whispered something, but she wasn't listening. Rick stood up halfway, fists clenched, until the bailiff stepped forward. The gavel came down once, sharp as thunder. It was over. Or so I thought. 3 days later, I drove up the mountain behind the sheriff's truck. 2 deputies were already there, body cams on, eyes wary. The driveway was empty except for my own tire tracks. The door was open. Inside, wreckage. Cabinets ripped out. Walls spray painted with obscenities. Furniture slashed. They'd even poured concrete down the kitchen sink. I stood in the doorway, breathing through my teeth. The sheriff muttered, "Guess they didn't take the loss kindly." "No," I said quietly. "They didn't. I didn't even bother filing for damages. The insurance barely covered half of it anyway." But as I swept the debris that night, alone under the cabin's bare bulb, I felt something else under the anger, relief. The noise was gone. The lies, the smug smiles, the waiting. Just the sound of wine moving through the pines, like the mountain exhaling. Weeks passed. I rebuilt slow. New walls, new wiring, fresh paint. Mason came back with his tools and a 6-pack, said, "Feels like the mountain finally gave you permission." Maybe it had. Then one morning, while fixing the porch rail, a county sedan pulled into the drive. A woman stepped out. Linda Reeves, the retired clerk who'd helped me months back. She held out a manila envelope. "Thought you'd want to see this," she said. Inside were photocopies. Disciplinary reports. Rick Dalton, suspended indefinitely pending ethics investigation. Corinne Dalton, real estate license revoked for misconduct and fraud. I looked up at her. "How?" "Your complaints made it to the state," she said with a grin. Guess the wheels of justice just needed a little noise. I stood there for a long while after she left, listening to the forest breathe around me. The sun was setting, spilling gold across the deck, catching the dust in the air. It wasn't victory. Not really. Too much had been broken along the way. But it was justice, slow, flawed, human justice. And it was enough. I bought a mountain home to fix up. They tried to take it, but in the end, the mountain stayed with the one who respected it most.